Alright, today I'm playing Mercenary Arsenal Spec. He's level 55. And I just put up a couple of PvP war zones. The first one is not my favorite war zone, but it works out pretty good here. I think the important thing for a lot of people that play Mercenaries, they don't understand that the class is a bit deficient defensively. It's not the best class if you want to have strong survivability. I mean, if you play a heal spec, I guess you could get yourself out of a lot of trouble. But at the same time, I mean, who wants to heal in PvP? I mean, it's usually like 1 or 2 players per match per team, healing, which to each their own. But anyway, but I'm playing the Arsenal spec, and what I found about the Arsenal spec is you have such quick takedown power, and you have mobility as well. It used to be that you were basically stuck in one place because your missile had I think it was a 2-second cast time or 1.5-second cast time. I can't remember what it was, but that's all you had. That was your main source of offense. But now you've got priming shot, and at level 55, it's pretty huge because when priming shot procs, you get an instant on your missile attack, your fusion missile, and it's huge. I mean, you can bust out so much damage quick, and of course you can follow it up with your rail shot, and then you got your rapid shots, and you can dish out thousands of damage in a few seconds. And what's nice about it is, like I said, it's your mobility. The sniper can crank out some damage too, but it's so obvious when the sniper goes into bunker mode and you're kind of stuck in that spot. You can move around, but you really can't run and gun like a mercenary can. And like in this game, everything was just working out perfect because we had a healer who was doing a really good job. And so I'm sitting there getting healed like crazy. And on top of it, one of the most important things playing a mercenary is to use your team. You need to put players in front of you as tanks. The biggest mistake and what gets you killed is when you go too far forward to the front lines to get more damage or get another player down. That's when you get in trouble as a mercenary. All you have to do when you're playing a mercenary is use that front line. Keep other players in front of you, other teammates in front of you. They're going to draw the attention. You have ranged attacks. You don't need to get up close with these guys. Now, like here, I'm pulling up forward just a little bit, and 9 times out of 10, that's where you get in trouble. And you get too aggressive and you start following people away from your offensive line, we'll say. That's where you get in trouble. So, but in this match, I was definitely blessed to have a really good healer who kept, like here, they're just keeping me going. That's purely the healer doing their job well. And but like I said, you get some of these guys that are going to get in your face, and if you play your cards right, you're going to have defensive options open to you. You're going to have cooldowns up. You can remove the issues that the mercenary has if you just play with it carefully. Don't try to get too much damage out. Keep other players, of course you got to assess the situation. Like right here, I get too aggressive and I pull up ahead of the rest of the team. I've got one guy in front of me, but he's not drawing much attention. So now I'm pulling back, and I'm like, all right, I got to let somebody else take the damage. And the sorcerers are powerful enough that they can really divert and hold the enemy's attention really well. And so like here, I mean, when you're in PvP, these lines aren't defined. Sometimes you're going to have one player just hanging out who's vulnerable that you can go after. But like here again in this case, I went up forward too far, and I got a force user on me, and he is he gonna cut me down? Oh yeah. See, you get other players, you get your team in front of you, and it's not being selfish. It's just being smart. You don't have tanking ability. You don't have strong escape ability. You do have some high damage that you can unload if you're not getting the crap beat out of you. So you just use that, you know. Here again, I'm breaking my own rule. I get too far into it, too far ahead of the front lines, and that's what gets you killed every time. Well, maybe not every time, but a lot of times. So this map, you know, I played it so much, and it's usually a win big or lose big map, like a lot of PvP maps, but this one especially, it seems like if your team isn't on it and doesn't have the pattern figured out on the first round, it seems like it just goes downhill from there. But yeah. Here we go again. I get too far ahead of the pack, and I pay for it. Just all reds over here. It's not where I need to be. I need to be back on my side of the map. Okay, so now that that explosion's done, I can and should be able to do that. And it shouldn't be a big deal either. But yeah, I mean, it's basic tactics. You know, people whine and complain so much about the Mercenary, and generally, if you're getting your butt kicked, it's usually because you've come up against a pre-made, and they're not going to let anybody on your team get by. In this case, it's not just being on a winning team. It's because it's a fairly close match, but for the most part, it comes down to just positioning yourself correctly. And I don't know what it is for a lot of people. If a lot of people that don't like mercs, that aren't happy about mercs, what the issue is there. But you know, like in this case, you just keep one player in front of you. That's all you gotta do sometimes. Just don't be the hero and go to the front line. That's when you get killed. And this, you know, people have their opinions on PvP and what classes are effective, but even from day one, I've always looked at the Sork as being the most likely to be able to have an impact, if not for force speed, then for bubble. And if you have a Sork that uses bubbles a lot and force speed, they can dominate a map sometimes. And you know, I look at this in some games, like this game, I wanted to nickname the bubble game because it seemed like everybody had bubbles at times. And you know, it's like effortless healing. You instantly cast a bubble on your entire team, and you don't have to sit there and channel heals or any of that stuff. You know, you get the big heal numbers at the end of the match just from right clicking on people, basically. Yeah, here I'm just getting I'm getting healed is what's happening. I'm getting hit pretty hard, but because I have a healer that's doing their best to keep me alive, I nearly survived it.
Synchronized. Clear the air.
But anyway, what I notice is, I think when people have their biggest problems is when they come up against pre-mades and teams that are organized well. And sometimes it only takes like one or two people in a match who single you out and go after you. Now, I will definitely say Mercenaries, I hate it when I get queued into the 4 versus 4 maps because I do get focused as a merc. It's guaranteed every time I'm going to get focused. and it's not like it happens every time. I shouldn't say it does, but it feels like it. And when it does, it's like you just want to just forfeit it and get out of it, because you go down pretty fast when teams want to focus you. But I've won four versus four games as a Merc too. I mean, there's luck involved in that too. But most of the time you're going to be in the full team versus team PvP instead of that 4 versus 4 arena crap. And really, in the bigger games, there's no need to let yourself get killed. I mean, unless you hit on a pre-mate. But, so this was a win, and I think it was a win mainly because we had good healing, and we had people that were just on it enough to take the node and keep it, and keep everybody else alive, and the other team just couldn't put out enough offense and organize well enough to win it. But, so anyway, there's that. That's one map I just don't like very much. I don't know. Maybe there's people who do. Maybe there's people who understand the whole strategy behind it and enjoy the dynamics of it. But I'd rather play Hutball. And when I first started, I hated Hutball. But after they changed the scoring system, I didn't mind Hutball as much, just because they made it to where you could get a lot of PvP points just by attacking the ball carrier, passing the ball, picking up the ball. It wasn't just about scoring touchdowns, I guess, if you want to call it. But anyway, that's my build at 55. I still like the old skill trees better when you could hybrid. I guess it made it easier when they made it like it is now to balance the classes, but I still feel like the classes basically feel the same, but we've lost a lot of customization, and customization's huge. That's a big part of why you play MMOs and RPGs, is to just have options and try different stuff. But I mean, I did okay in this match. It wasn't the best. I mean, sometimes it's always, you're kind of fighting a mixture of trying to get a high score and trying to win the game. And a lot of players, I think, would rather just get a higher PvP or a damage score than necessarily win the game. I mean, you always want to win, but the truth is sometimes you just don't. By going after objectives, it doesn't always show in your score and your contribution. But I really like priming shot. That changed the arsenal build for me. It made it viable in PvP. Having to sit still and just shoot your missile over and over sucked, and it definitely made you vulnerable. And there weren't very many players who were going to sit there and let you do it. But because of priming shot, and now that I guess it's hail of bolts or unload now, that you can cast those while moving. That's huge. That adds a ton of damage, and gives you the mobility that Mercs were hurting for such a long time. But anyway, I've got another game that's getting ready to queue up here, and it's another win. And I think it's good to show the wins. Some people want to just show the damage, and I suppose if I concentrated more on damage and not just playing the match, that it wouldn't be my style. I try to find a balance between trying to win and trying to do some good damage. But like I put up a video a week or two ago about the Operative, and the Operative using Lethality spec and the Mercenary and a DPS spec are so different, because where the Operative has really strong survivability between your stealth, your cloaking, your ability to drop out of combat, your ability to heal up yourself, there's so much you can do to get out of trouble. and make yourself really difficult to kill. And the mercenary is different, but the thing of it is like when you're playing an operative and you're dropping dots everywhere, you know, the poison grenade and the poison dart, you know, and you're just, yeah, you're putting up big overall numbers. The problem is they aren't impactful numbers. It's not removing players from the equation, enemy players. And but with the mercenary, in spite of all the perceived problems with it, you know, if you play halfway smart and you understand your environment and the players on your team and your positioning, you can put out, you know, takedown, what I call takedown damage, where you're hitting hard enough to remove players from the equation. And ultimately, I think that the lethality spec for the operative, while it's not useless, I don't think it really does that much good, unless the only time I see it doing any good is when you're using your defensive abilities. As a you manage to get players to focus on you and you draw them away from the objective, but that's really not why anybody plays.
And that.
You know, I obviously you know, I said before, I think the lethality operative's big problem is the range on Cole just isn't right. It's only 10 meters, and it really doesn't make sense, and it really limits your damage capability. And for the mercenary, you don't have that, and you have, you know, you can do several thousand damage per hit over and over and over, you know, and energy is no issue. And it really just comes down to having a reasonably, I would say, an average team on your positioning. Stay behind the other players on your team. Use your range. That's what it's for. You've got long range on all your attacks. Make the most of them. There's no need for you to get up front and personal and get yourself exposed to a lot of attacks by the other team. And so, I mean, just if I was going to do a mercenary versus operative, you know, comparison, I don't really, at least in usefulness in a PvP match, I don't think there's any real comparison. I really don't. And now, if you spec the operative tree for backstabbing and in melee combat, I can't remember what it's called. I never liked that, playing the stun lock rogue type build in any MMO. I always thought it was cheap and hated playing that way, and I hate players who play that way. And I've come across good players in that spec, and they can dominate a map. But at least as far as the operative goes, using lethality spec, I think it's a broken spec, much more so compared to any other class in the game, I would say. And if you're comparing it to the mercenary is in much better shape in terms of damage and positive impact on the team. So I don't think it's really even close. And I think if I can sit here and say the Merc is that much better than a lethality operative, then Bioware has some work to do on operatives. And whether that's ever going to happen or not, I don't know. But
Take it away, Baron Deathmark.
it does kind of bug me when they've reworked and worked and added and changed skills so many times, how they can keep that damn Cole max range at 10 meters. I cannot understand it. After all this time, why would you leave it?
Sponsored by
It doesn't fit with the rest of the build at all. You've got 30 meter range on your grenades, on your darts. Why not on Cole? You know, but hey, that's all I can do is give my opinion there. But you know, I think the mercenary is underrated, and most of the time, you know, sometimes I've read a lot of forums, I've looked at MMOs and watched class balance tons over the years, and I can definitely say sometimes people are right when they say class is not balanced when it's not up to par, and sometimes they're not. I would say in the case of the mercenary, if you're playing smart at all and you understand what your character is supposed to be able to do and what it's not meant to do, you can do fine. Well, I don't understand what people are waiting for from the Mercenary now in terms of balance. I mean, if you haven't figured it out yet, you never will. But at the same time, I look at the operative trying to use coal at 10 meters, and I just don't see it. You know, at least you see these force users leaping around. Well, yeah, they need it because most of their attacks are 10-meter range. But yet the operative is sitting there forced to try and get himself into attack range to use coal. So anyway, but you know, here again, here's this is Hut Ball, which I hated, absolutely hated when I first started playing this with TOR, but I actually like it now. I think it works pretty good. I'm not too big into carrying the ball, but I like to play defense. I like being able to position above people. I usually stay on the upper tiers because it gives you so many advantages, and that to me is just part of the fun of PvP. But the sniper just hit me hard, 11,000 damage. But you know, I got a little bit of healing ability. It's not much, but you know, not all classes can heal. That's it's kind of a good deal. I like Hut Ball also because, like in this case, I've got a teammate who I got to try and escort in. So now my job is to try and pick off anybody between him and the goal line, and everybody was waiting for this guy to come across. So I know how it feels when you're playing defense. When you're just like, you've got your cooldowns up, but you got this nagging feeling he's gonna just ignore your snare, your slow, your stun, whatever, and just keep on going. But yeah, this is pretty cool. You got somebody dropping lightning there, trying to do some AoE damage. Now I will say on this map, it's not as easy to position yourself behind the team. A lot of times you're going to have to stick your neck out at gear and get killed. But at the same time, it's less about using the team as it is the environment to your advantage. You know, stay as high as you can, stay above the enemy, the other players. That's where you get advantage. You still have got line of sight. You have those columns. You have the platforms to hide or move around. You know, you still got a lot in your favor. And it's really, if you don't have players around you to use the map. Use line of sight. Always use line of sight. I said it in my operative video. I will always say it. The best players know how to use line of sight. And like another big one on this map is knockback. And you got to be pretty good to know where to stand and where not to stand, and at what angles you can hit players, whether you're trying to knock them off a platform or into the fire pits or the poison pits. A lot of players know where not to stand to keep from getting knocked back, either off a platform or into the fire, and vice versa. But I still like this because I'm just, I'm mobile, I'm moving around, I'm just looking for targets. And these Jedi are so predictable. They always do this. They're always going to use you as a stepping stone to get up to a higher level. It's something you always have to watch out for. But this guy, he's not going to get up there.
Dog pass goes nowhere fast. That'll hurt in the morning.
I have to say, I don't see myself playing or doing any videos on these Jedi classes, these lightsaber users. I hate playing in PvP. They're okay in PvE. I think the sword fighting mechanics are kind of a joke. The fact that you're not blocking somebody else's lightsaber when you're in combat, you're just hitting each other. I think it's kind of silly. I think MMOs have evolved past that kind of loud gameplay, but In PvP, I just can't stand it. I hate having to get melee range. I mean, you've heard me complain about the operative. I mean, it's no better as a Jedi or a Shadow Marauder. You know, all those lightsaber classes. It's just I don't like being forced to try and get melee range, even though there's, you know, they've got the Ravage lockdown ability to hold you in place while you're using Ravage, but then, you know, it seems like there's always a counter to that too, and you're just always fighting to keep in melee range of the enemy. But anyway, I just wanted to put up a video about Mercenary and not sit there and be completely one-sided or biased about it. I see the weaknesses. I know there's certain situations of PvP where, you know, in the first 4-player maps, yes, they are weak, but I think overall it really is a matter of playing the class correctly, understanding your strengths and what you're good at, and using your team, using your environment, and picking your fights, and not trying to get too much, not getting too many, and forgetting about basic strategy. I mean, if you don't need any strategy, then your class is overpowered, and you should expect a nerf very soon. But like I said, I think mercs are fine overall most of the time in most PvP matches on most maps. And but you know what? If anybody has a disagreement, if you have something to point out that I didn't, you can mention it in the comments below, and I'd be interested in having a debate about it. And that's all I got to say. Thanks for watching.
Have the ball! Show us what you've got, rotworms! Rotworms have the ball! Show us what you've got, rotworms! That'll hurt in the morning. Frog Dog's on a rampage! Ball handler is down! Ball! Let's go berserk! dogs grab the ball! Run, frog dogs! Rotworms take out a frog dog! Brutal! Rotworms take out a frog dog! Brutal! Frog dogs just pulled the ball handler apart! Frog dog throws to frog dog! Nice pass! Rotworms destroy the ball handler! Pass! Success! That's how it's done! Oh, the frog dogs just pulled the ball handler apart! Neutral ball! Let's go, Mercenary!
You've lost the multitude of the country.
Mighty Gerard the Hutt declares the Rotworms today's winners and praises their, voracious talent.